Hi, I'm Crystal, and today we're going to talk about cutting tools. So you probably have regular scissors, but there are some specialty cutting tools that I'd like to talk about today that you might want to add to your arsenal. So aside from regular scissors, some of the options that are available are recoil scissors. These recoil scissors have a spring in the middle of the mechanism here, and that spring helps the scissors spring back open. So these are handy if you've got some hand strength issues. Perhaps you've got a touch of arthritis in your hands. Sometimes the spring-loaded scissors, the recoil scissors, can be very helpful. The next option is very sharp detail scissors. So Cutter Bee is probably the one that a lot of people are familiar with. These very sharp detail scissors, they're precision scissors meant for paper, and these will help you if you do a lot of fussy cutting of fine images. Sometimes you can do the same with regular scissors, but a lot of times I reach for those detail scissors. Another option is a micro-serrated scissor. So you can't really see this very well looking at the scissors themselves, but one of the blades has got teeny tiny little serrations on it. So this is handy if you are working with something that might otherwise slip out of the scissors. So if you're working with a lot of ribbon or lace, also pet trim scissors are often micro-serrated. If you are a seamstress, you may be familiar with the Buckley Perfect scissor. Those are also micro-serrated. So these are the Tim Holtz for Tonic micro-serrated scissors, but sometimes if you check the pet grooming section, you can pick up a bargain. The next thing is a non-stick scissor. Now these are pretty widely available. You can often find them in office supply, and these are very handy if you're cutting something sticky. So if you do a lot of foam tape, for example, non-stick scissors are really going to make that experience much better. The bargain shopping option here is typically in the kids crafts section. So these are Fisker non-stick scissors from the crafts. These are Fisker non-stick scissors sold in the kids section. There's effectively no difference between them except the kids version is a little bit rounded. And often they are much cheaper. Next we have the decorative edge scissors. Now I used to have more than this, but I've gotten rid of most of them except for the shapes that I actually use. So I've actually got some here from Stampin' Up! And even from Creative Memories. These are decal edge scissors. I use that shape fairly often. I also have got some that have a pinking edge, two different sizes. I use the pinking edge when I'm making little miniature paper bags. And I also have got some that have a scalloped edge. Scalloped edge is really handy if you're making braids for paper dolls or any type of rope out of paper. That scallop edge is really handy. The only other shape I have left is something called Victorian, but I'm here to tell you these are tough to use and actually get a nice even cut down a long length of paper. Next, I want to mention wire snips. So these are from the hardware store. They were pretty inexpensive, and these are something that you should have in your arsenal if you do a lot of die cutting. If you get dies that are still connected to one another, you do not want to use your scissors to separate the dies because you will ruin your scissors. You will notch them. So having some wire snips is handy for separating those dies. Now some people do like to use a craft knife. This would just be a straight edge. These blades are cheap and easy to find. There are many different handles for craft knives, but this is something that does take a little bit of practice and skill. So I did use a craft knife quite a bit when I worked in newspaper production, and I'm here to tell you that if you're trying to get a straight edge with a craft knife, you need a steel ruler that has a cork back. The cork back will keep the steel ruler from sliding around on almost any surface, and the steel of the steel ruler will let you run the blade right along the edge of the ruler without damaging the ruler and still get a straight cut. Not really something I'm going to recommend for most crafters. I think it's easy to hurt yourself with this option. Next thing is a rotary cutter. Now I don't have a rotary cutter like you might use to cut out pattern pieces, but I do have this perforator from Tonic that makes a perforated line. There's a little gap in the wheel there so you can make a perf cut, and I do use that periodically. Pretty handy. And then the last cutting option I want to talk about is this one. This is a Canary box opener. It's got a non-stick micro-serrated blade. It's a single blade, so it's not actually scissors, it's a knife. But if you get a lot of boxes for online shipping, or if you do work with corrugated cardboard, this is just life-changing. The year that I first got a Canary cutter, I actually bought this for everybody on my Christmas list, just gave them away left, right, and sideways. They cut through the tape on boxes with ease, and they cut through corrugated cardboard without crushing it. So I really like my Canary cutter, and I actually had to buy a couple extras because my husband and I were fighting over this. So I'm going to admit that you don't need every kind of scissor, and I did count the number of scissors that I've got, and so I know that this looks like a lot, but this is not all of my scissors. This is just a selection. I actually have 40 pairs of scissors in my craft room, and that is excessive. So I admit that. You do not need 40 pairs of scissors, but you might want 1 or 2 specialty pairs. So from here, let's talk about paper trimmers. Okay, so paper trimmers come in probably... Okay, so paper trimmers come in what I would think of as 3 main categories. So I'm going to talk about my favorite one first. This is the one that I use every day, and this is a guillotine trimmer. So a guillotine trimmer has a blade at the side that comes down like a guillotine, hence the name. They are self-sharpening blades, and that is the feature about this that I like the most. So the blade doesn't need to be replaced. You can break the arm. I mean, this is plastic construction, so you can break it. And I have to say that this is not the best thing if you're trying to make tiny cuts under 1 inch, because it's tough to see the measurements under this guide, which is placed over the paper. The next category I want to talk about is the rotary trimmer. So you can see I have 2 of those. I have a Carl and a Doll. And the rotary trimmers have a blade cartridge that runs up and down the track. And these are also self-sharpening. The blade sharpens itself as it goes along the track, although for some types the cartridge is replaceable. So I have got some different blades for the Carl machine in particular that have some shapes. So I've got a colonial cut shape, and I've got an extra straight blade. I have a Victorian cut. So there are a couple of different options that you can put into these cartridges. Do I ever use those options? No. Now these are pretty well made machines. The guillotine trimmer will cut a little bit more paper, but these are very solid, and you can typically cut 2 pieces of paper at a time in one of these rotary trimmers. They're very solidly built. Again, working with the tiniest measurements is a little bit difficult. Now, aside from the rotary trimmer, you have these trimmers, which are the craft trimmers that I think we mostly see. So this is 1 for Carl and 2 for Fiskars. And these all have blades that are replaced. And so the main thing that I don't like about this type of trimmer is that the blades get dull and the blades have to be replaced. They all work pretty well. You can easily work with tiny measurements because you can see the sub 1 inch measurements quite easily. They are easy to store. They don't take up very much space. They're typically inexpensive to buy. So I would say the main consideration when you buy one of this type of trimmer is that you get something where the replacement blades are easy to find, because that is what is going to cause you to stop using the paper trimmer before anything else. So I would definitely look for a brand that is carried at your local craft store or whatever online craft store you patronize, because you want to be able to find those replacement blades. So I hope that that survey of different types of paper trimmers is helpful. Obviously I have an excessive number of each of these options, but the one that I go back to again and again is the guillotine trimmer, and I hope that you find something that you like as well as I like that. Thanks for joining me today.